A few years ago, I made a change. I started thinking in terms of making a photo rather than taking one. And this is more than just semantics. It's a different mindset, one that changed how I think about photography and, in particular, photography gear. The language of photography is oddly violent. You aim the camera, shoot your subject, and take a photo. And as a landscape photographer, these aggressive metaphors aren't necessarily that obvious. But as a cultural photographer, they can be really uncomfortable. And this idea of taking a photo really betrays how people thought about photography in its early days, in the late 1800s. Many believed the camera literally took something from the scene being photographed, the very shadow of a person. There isn't much creativity in taking something. You take an X-ray, you take a measurement, and thinking in these terms pushes responsibility to the object doing the taking, to the camera. Over time, this has inflated the importance of the camera, perpetuating this myth that you can't take great photos if you don't have a great camera. It's not true, but it's a myth that camera manufacturers aren't in any rush to correct. So when I heard photographer Bruce Percy talking about making a photo, it caught my attention. Making a photo sounds better, it's more artistic, and it's definitely a less violent term, so I adopted it. I think I should say a little about Bruce Percy here because he's one of my favorite photographers. He creates these deceptively simple compositions that are still incredibly captivating. He sees photos that many of us would just walk right on by. If you think in terms of making a photo, well, then your perspective shifts a little. The spotlight travels from the camera to you, to the person creating the composition. All of a sudden, the camera is just a tool. It's no longer the star of the show. This isn't limited to the camera either. The importance of all photography gear gets elevated by association. That's why this stuff is so ridiculously expensive, because as photographers, we believe gear matters so much, we'll pay stupid prices for it. I know this because I used to fixate on gear, drooling over every shiny new gadget, but that way of thinking is incredibly counterproductive. Here's why. It's expensive, but I don't think I need to clarify that point. Spending thousands on gear often means you don't really know the ins and outs of that gear. I can work my camera and my lights pretty much with my eyes closed, so making changes doesn't interrupt my creative flow. When I have new gear though, it's a totally different experience, as I constantly get snapped out of my flow state to change settings or something. It's time consuming. Learning how to master all this new stuff takes time. When I upgraded my lighting system a few years ago, I brought the old one with me for ages because I was scared that something would go wrong with the new lights and I just wouldn't know them well enough to fix them. I remember putting projects off because I didn't think I could do them without some new gadget I'd seen but didn't own yet, and that mentality comes from associating gear with success. The gear takes the photos, so the best gear is crucial. Here's the thing though, making a photo feels different. I don't care what strobe is lighting my subject. I care about creating a powerful image, and if I can get what I need with picnic lights, then, that works fine for me. I read the script for this video to my wife. I do that a lot because I know she's going to be honest with me and tell me if I'm talking out of my ass. Anyway, she mentioned how it reminded her of this story about Keith Jarrett, who in the 1970s was an up-and-coming jazz piano player. He's getting ready to play the biggest crowd of his career when he finds out that the piano he's been given is in really bad shape. It's out of tune and a bit banged up, so at first he refuses to play, claiming, he won't be able to do justice to the music. But then realizing he'd be letting everyone down, he relents and plays what would become one of the most popular jazz albums of all time. He took this less than perfect instrument and created beautiful compositions with it. You see, gear matters only as far as it helps translate your creative vision. Your camera, your lenses, your lights. They're just instruments, they're just tools. Just because you can take a photo in an instant doesn't mean you have to. Be intentional with your compositions, explore your options, test out perspectives, and manipulate how your scene fits into your frame. Make a photo.